We're here in Sefiras. How do you count? Bayom harishon omer hayom yom echad ba'omer ad shemagia l'shiva yomim. V'oz hayom hayom shiva yomim shem shvua achas ba'omer. Shvua echad ba'omer. Okay. Ubayom hashvini yom hayom shmona yomim shem shvua echad v'yom echad ba'omer. V'chein ad shemagia la'arba asar yom hayom arba asar yomim shem shnei shvuos ba'omer. Okay, so this is basically what we do. This is not so exciting, so to speak. Okay, Sefer Yomim B'Shvuos. Why do you have to do both of these things? Dechsiv Tisbru Chamishim Yom, count 50 days. Uksiv Shiva Shavuos Tisbru Loch, count 7 weeks. So you have two psukim, one telling you to count days, and one telling you to count weeks. Not only that, there are some Rishonim who say that there are two totally different mitzvahs. There's a mitzvah of counting the Shavuos, a mitzvah of counting the days. I'll even go so far as to tell you that the minig in brisk is if you miss the day and you can't count with a bracha, when you get up to a week, the week you can count with a bracha. Okay? That has to do with Rabbi Avrohom. Okay. Now, if you count the days without Shavuos, there are those who say Yotze B'Diavad. Yeshom Tzach Lachsa V'Lisbar Yomim B'Shvuos Kadin. V'Alkei Chayzer V'Sefer V'Loi Bracha. You count without a bracha. V'Mona Shvuos V'Loi Yomim. You just said Shvuos, you didn't say days at all. Kagon Shalom Hayom Hashvi Hayom Shvua Echad V'Loi Hiski Yomim V'Kuli Yam Lo Yotza. Everybody holds it's necessary to count the days. The shaila is about the weeks. Ba'omer. V'Roiv HaPoiskim Omrim Nosach Lo Omer. So say to the Omer. Miu ikar din zeh eino ela lechatchila kadei levar shumanim v'yom shekrivu ha'omer v'hala. V'im loy omar ela hayom kach v'kach nami yotza. Even if you didn't say the word omer at all, you're yotza. V'yom hashvi omer v'im loy omar ela hayom shmona yomim v'lo siyim shem shvua echad nami yotza sharei hiskir shvuas esmol b'yom hashvi. Okay, so you already counted the weeks that have passed. V'chein im loy. And the new week hasn't started yet. You know, you didn't get to another new week. V'chelim loy omar ela hayom shvua echad v'yom echad b'chod nami yotza sharei kvar hisker hayomim she'ovru kol echad b'yomoy v'omer shvua echad v'loy achas. And the proper diktuk is to say shvua echad, and you don't say shvua achas. V'chein shnei shavuos v'loy shtei shavuos. The shavua lashon zachar ad asara omer yomim. Ume'achad also ve'elech omer yom. Ken yesh leimar minyan hamu etchila kegon echad ve'esim yom shekol eino dvarim eino elikuva el letzachos halashon. That's the proper way of counting. Al derech zeh minig leimar achar hasvira yiratzon she'ebana beis hamikdash kolaimar va'oz nekai mitzvahs havoas ha'omer. The mitzvah of havoas ha'omer v'yesh nogen Kam kedover mitzvah elakim yochadenu, which we don't say here in this shul. Okay. I didn't know that tzachos halashon depends on how people say.
Well, this is something that doesn't have grammatically. I know, but why be marked on it?
I think it makes it clearer what you're doing. That's all. Ein bachron shenechol imana rashi tevus kigon shom hayom beis yomim ukadoima im yotza. If you said today is beis yomim, because of a chok Yaakov, the kiwan deroiva poiskim ikir svir bizwan azein el derabanon ein lahachmer misveika lachsa v'lisbor b'li bracha, and you can be yotza when you said beis yomim. V'dadach aponim in birch balev bivadai lo yotza klal the hearer lav kedibur domi. If you counted balev, you're not yetzer, because here lav kedibur domi. V'chein koso pri chodosh lahedya v'sivov v'ayin v'sivin tzadik beis the Mishnah Berurah and the halacha. When do you say here kedibur or not? Okay, and those who say there's a mistake over here, a typo, when it says if you said the bracha behirur, it says it's supposed to say if you counted behirur. Okay.
The thing was saying saying that both the kula and the chumrah. So if he says that he loses the bracha.
I would say so. Yeah. I just want to tell you. I just want to tell you something which some of the Achrayim say about this whole subject. You could count in English, right? There's not lead Lashon HaKodesh. So why should saying Beis Ba'omer be worse than counting in English? Beis Ba'omer, there's no weeks and days. It's just Beis Ba'omer, right?
Second of the
So now, if I say the second day of the Omer, right? No, what's the difference? Why does it work if you say it in English? Because we understand and you understand what you said.
So you can say Beit Ba'omer doesn't mean the second day. It just means second day. It's not clear saying it's the second.
One second.
Are we not supposed to count with ordinal? We're not supposed to say first, second, third. We're supposed to go 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, but even if you did say first, second, third, you're yaitza, right? Now, if I count in English, all it is, I expressed an idea in a foreign language which we understand what you meant, right?
You can do that today is XVI Ba'omer.
What did you just say? You just said a number, right? What's XVI? That's a number. Okay, so that would be fine. In other words, if no, not clear to you, it has to be in the language, right?
Roman numerals still exist.
Up to 12, we know that they exist, right? Yeah, and maybe if we were in Rome, we would say otherwise. But this is what some Achrayim say, that counting Beis Ba'omer is no different than counting in a different language, because it's clear what you mean. In other words, it's not just clear that you know what you're saying. People understand what you're saying. That's called you said it. Yeah. I just tell you that the subject of here has to do with if that's like you spoke, but no one's telling you that it's like you said it. Something that has to be done, the dibur, you're not yaitz if you did it behirher. Something which you have to have that you connected to it, that could be. And this is true also about writing. If you wrote the Sefira, so there's a question if you're yaitz with your writing. The Shari Tshuva discusses that. But it's not called saying, it's called you communicated. So this depends on how much you need to actually say it. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to do Sif Beis. Im to b'yem ha'unan ubirchu al Sefiras ha'omer, and they counted early. Choyzin lisma kishetachshach. You count again when it gets dark. Okay. Now, when was it that you counted? It doesn't say here when you counted. It just says that you did it at the wrong time. When did you count it? Right? Ben Ishmoshes, what does it mean? Okay. V'amedaktikin enon sefer ma tzeisa kechavim, and the medaktikim, they don't count until tzeisa kechavim. B'chein roi lasos, something like that. What does it say? B'chein roi lasos, yeah. And that's what one should do. Now, if a person counts Ben Hashmoshes, we said you're yaitza. Why are you yaitza if you counted Ben Hashmoshes? Because it's a drabonon, and so drabonon kula, and therefore you could say that it's night. Is that called the lechatchila time to count?
No, because that's the complete.
I didn't understand the word you said.
No.
Why?
It's a kambana. It's supposed to be complete days.
If the Safek Rabban Makula says I could count Ben Hashmoshes, that means that I could assume that it's night. Doesn't it mean that?
Right, another chatchila. It's a suffix night. It's suffix day, suffix night. That's cool.
And the halacha is that I could assume that it's night.
Right, but the chatchila should be wait till it's for sure night.
Why should I do that?
Because you're supposed to count complete days. And complete days only really start when it's night. I mean, night really.
Well, we're right now going in a circle. I'm going to ask the same question again. If Safek D'Rabbanan says that it already started night, and this is the gap for a D'Rabbanan, why isn't it night? But that's good enough.
Good enough. But good enough isn't what you should do.
Why not? I don't think that's your answer is correct.
The subject aren't saying that it's night, they're saying that it's enough night that we can...
Right, then that's enough. I don't need more than that. I think the answer to the question is because there's a tzad that it's Doraisa, and it's a suffix Doraisa, and for the Doraisa it's not night. You understand the difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure, only the Rabbanan, and it's fine.
Right. Okay, and now that happens to be, there's a fascinating discussion over here, which I'm just going to mention the discussion. We say Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula. When do you say Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula?
I don't have a doubt. You're not sure if you...
Okay, I'm going to give you a case where we don't say Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula. You have this, the question which I'm going to ask you right now, probably none of you know what I'm talking about, because I don't believe any of you people ever salted meat or chicken, right? Okay. But I've done that, okay? Now, I'll just tell you, if you do this, and you do a lot of it, everything has to be properly labeled and marked, because you have a lot of stuff, and you can't remember which pile you did what to, so you have to have some kind of indication to follow what's going on. Now, if I didn't salt my chicken and I cooked it, I'm only going to be over on Isser D'Rabbanan. Okay? So the halacha of salting it is a D'Rabbanan. And if I'm not sure if I did all the steps involved in the salting of it, do I say Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula? Okay, well, I'm going to tell you that the poskim say that you cannot say that. And they give a fascinating reason why. The reason why is that what you say, Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula, that's only if you don't have a cheskas iser. But if you have a cheskas iser, then you don't say Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula. My chicken, it was not salted. So until I know it was salted, the Safek D'Rabbanan cannot be moitzi from the cheskas iser that it had. So therefore, it's still mechuyev to be salted again. Okay? Now, the question is, are there other kinds of things that will tell you, in the case of a D'Rabbanan, that you can't say Safek D'Rabbanan L'Kula? And this is where there's a discussion over here, if this is one of those kinds of things. But not every D'Rabbanan always goes L'Kula. That's the point that I'm just going to share.
The same type of deal that until now was day, and then we don't know if it was night yet, or just that was a time example.
No, I wasn't going to get involved. The question is if you're becheskas that you didn't count. Whatever I'm not going to get involved. Just that's the subject which is discussed. Okay. I'm going to answer your question. I think that your problem is based on the machlokes Rabbeinu Yoin and the Rashba. I think that's where you are. And I'm going to share with you a fascinating halacha. I'm not sure if I said Kriya Shema. Okay? So the halacha is, you're not sure if you said Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema is a deraisa. You have to say Kriya Shema again. The bracha on Kriya Shema is a derabanan. So if I have to say over Kriya Shema because I'm not sure I was yaitzer for whatever reason, do I have to say over the bracha? There's machlekes rishonim on the subject. Everybody is of the opinion that Birchas Kriya Shema is a derabanan, but once it became part of Kriya Shema, so it goes with it. So if you're going to have to say over Kriya Shema, according to, I think this is the way we paskin, you have to say over Birchas Kriya Shema. Because even though it's a derabanan, it takes on a pseudo life of a deraisa, because it's the part of the Kriya Shema. So this is like, sometimes the bracha goes with, sometimes it doesn't. You have to know each case what it is.
You have the opposite sort of opposite. If you're worried that your minion's not going to make Shema Kriya Shema and you say it early, should you say it with the brachas then?
I wouldn't say that you should say it with the brachas, no.
Okay, so that's one is on one end, one's on the other end.
No. Why shouldn't you say it with the brachas? Because if you're going to say it with the brachas, then you're not going to say it with the brachas later. Right?
You hold that and should all say them together.
Right.
Those who hold together, and then you've used up the brachas.
Now, if I'm going to be davening after Zman Kriya Shema, and I didn't say Kriya Shema, do you say Birchas Kriya Shema? Yes. Because Birchas Kriya Shema, besides being a Birchas HaMitzvahs, it's also a chelik of Tefillah. It's a fascinating idea, and therefore, I don't think that you would say it. I'll just share with you a fascinating thought on Birchas Kriya Shema, which is not so well known. I'm going to start with something which everybody knows, but probably nobody has any reason why. Why is it when someone gets an aliyah, before he says the brachas, he says Baruch Hu? Anybody know the answer to that question? What?
In case someone didn't hear Baruch Hu?
No, that's not the answer. That's the last Baruch Hu that's said after davening. The answer to the question is, when we say Birchas Kriya Shema, we say Baruch Hu beforehand. Right? Yeah. Why do we say Baruch Hu beforehand? So this is, I'm right now quoting the Rishonim. Any time that you are going to be being mitzi people, just like you say, what does that mean? No, it doesn't wake up. I'm announcing that I'm going to be being mitzi you for you to pay attention, right? It's a introduction to get people on board for what you're about to do. The halacha is that Birchas Kriya Shema, it used to be that the chazan was mitzi everybody. So therefore, we preface it with Baruch Hu. Okay, that's why we do that. And also, when we get an aliyah, the person who gets an aliyah is being mitzi people with the brachas. So therefore, you say Baruch Hu.
We should have a Baruch Hu by Mincha too.
I'm not sure about that.
What I might say.
Did you say before Shemona Esrei we should?
We should say Baruch Hu then.
Maybe wait.
No, but that's not this. The halacha person al Shema. When you're doing it, when probably something like if you're really doing the Amsha Besadis, you probably have something like that before you did Chazar Sashatz. But this is the Ravon, the Hartzvi discusses this Barichas. What? Okay, the Hartzvi discusses this Barichas, this idea.
It goes with the question why Ashkenazim don't say Amen after all the brachas. We only do it by benching.
When don't we say Amen?
After Yishtaba, you don't say Amen.
I don't know, I do.
I see what you're
saying. Say your own Amen.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody. Amen that you say to your own bracha.
Well, why should you say Amen to your own bracha?
By bracha ruka. Why do we do it by benching?
No, that's
wake up call that was.
We're switching from a deraisa to Rav Darbanan. But you should never say Amen to your own bracha. Right? It's a steer to unless there's a special reason to do it. Anyways, so that's why we say it, and therefore Birchas Kriya Shema was something which is a tefillah, and I'm just going to share with you the Mabit in Chuvas says something amazing. Why is it that we're not Yetzer Birchas Kriya Shema with the Chazan? And he says something which I heard this, the first place I heard this B'Shem Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky. When I say Tfilas Haderech, my wife isn't Yetzer with me. She makes her own Tfilas Haderech. Why is that? Because this was the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, that there are certain things which are brachas and obligations, and obligations you're Yetzer with somebody else. When it's an inyan of a tchina, you know what a tchina is? I'm not talking about a Taimani getting married, okay? A tchina is, in English, it's called a supplication, okay? Now, that is something very personal. So therefore, you don't do it with somebody else, you do it yourself, because that's like a mitzvah shebagufa, I guess we would call it, that's much more personal, and therefore, since Tfilas HaDerech is something like that, therefore, it should be done with somebody else. It's better if you could do it yourself.
It seems to be very common that people do it, one person on a trip does it.
Yeah, because most people are not able to do it. I'll just tell you on that note, in my father's shul, when there was a kiddush, my father would make an al-michya out loud. And at some point, I went over to my father, and I said, "You're doing the wrong thing. Why are you making an al-michya out loud?" Because my father was the one who made kiddush, and he made an ala gefen and ala michya together. And there are people in the shul who didn't drink any of the wine, and they just need an ala michya. And that's a question whether it's lichatchila to be yaitza with such an ala michya. So I told him, "Why are you doing this? You should have everybody say an ala michya themselves." That's right. That was his answer to me. Good question. I have a better answer. Okay? Better b'diavad than not at all. Okay? So the reason why I'm willing to say that most people are Yetzer Tfilas HaDerech with somebody else is because this way they do it.
So when is the category of Rovam Hadis Melech?
Rovam Hadis Melech is when you have a bracha. I'll just tell you the case that the Magen Avraham speaks about. When you go to shul and people are putting on a talis at the same time, one person should make a bracha for everyone. Now, our custom is usually, if the bracha has any length to it, that we don't do it like that because we're afraid people won't be paying attention. But otherwise, if you're afraid, if everybody think everybody's going to be there together, the best thing to do is to have one person make the bracha. Right, okay.
With everyone's attention.
Even when you're doing it yourself, you have difficulty.
No, but even when it can't. That's a technical issue.
Okay.
It's kind of broken. We say may. Sort of like broken. No, Hushain Kvod. Hushain Kvod. The long Malay Kvod. It's called it. We say amen twice to that.
That's not a bracha.
And I assume we make amen 3 times there, I think.
Yeah, but that's.
Amen.
What?
Why are we saying amen twice to that? I just thought about that. I just don't know. Listen to that.
Well, there's certain times we want to reinforce that we are on board with what we're saying. But that's not an amen that you're being yaitza bracha with. It's a different kind of an amen.
Why is the talis different than Tfilas HaDerech? We're all on the same bus together.
That's how I gave an answer. Because the one is a supplication, one is a bracha.
The talis is
It's a bracha.
the bracha. On Tfilas HaDerech.
It's a supplication.
It ends with a bracha.
Okay, now the Mabit says that Birchas Kriya Shema is also a supplication, and therefore that's why we don't do it with the Chazan. Okay, let's tell you that. Choose a Mabit, Chelik Beis, if I'm not mistaken. We can find a few if you really want. Either it's a Marit or Mabit. We don't know if it's the father or the son, but we can find it for you. All right.
Not the attention Spanish?
No, not everybody had your problem. Okay. Anyways, all right. Let's go on.
No, but the Mogen Abba mentions ADHD prevention. That's what we need prevention. Go to ADHD.
Okay. Humidivi Araj b'tshuva mevur shom shakol shesbalo gam ma'ariv koidem u'leiyin ma'ariv einam lachzon espalo mishum tircha d'tzibura. If you daven ma'ariv early, you don't have to daven again mishum tircha d'tzibura. Rak le'inyin sfira.
What does that mean? You don't say because it's tircha d'tzibura.
Yeah. Well, according to some, it means even though you weren't yaitza, mishum tircha d'tzibura, we don't have you do it again. Okay, because there's some kind of a daya to be samechan. So even though we're not samechan that daya, for tircha d'tzibura, we we let you not do it again? And I'll just answer that question. And what would be if the tzibur says they want to daven again? Okay, then I would say you're probably allowed to do that. We're not worried about the tircha. How could you say it if it doesn't make any sense? Okay.
That's what I said before. When you say the day that if you say early, mostly because it's not a complete day.
Yeah, but he's talking about you saying it before the time that you can count.
How can you say Torah Choshech when it's still daytime?
Well, I'm going to answer that question. No, the answer to that question is that you're close enough to the time that you can say, I'm just going to answer your question in a very poetic way. If you hold Tosfos Shabbos is the Rabbanon, can one make Kiddush before it's Vadei Laila? No, you didn't hear my question. If you hold Tosfos Shabbos the Rabbanon, we hold it's the Raisa. Right. But if you hold Tosfos Shabbos the Rabbanon, could you make Kiddush before it's night? Now, I'm going to give you a hint to answer to this question.
Well, the Rabbanon can make a cut and a guddle, so maybe they have this power.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you what the Poskim say. But beforehand, I'm going to share with you another question. When can somebody say Havdalah? What? Okay.
You could say it before nightfall if you have to.
Okay, that's correct. One could say it before nightfall. If he's a mashkim with var mitzvah, you could say it from plag mincha. Now, how could you say it? It's not night, and it's still Shabbos. There's no heter to do any malacha. You can't do anything, right? But, you're just not going to have a cup of wine when you're going to be by the tchum, wherever you have to. So you could say it earlier. How could you say it? It's not that time. So the Pri Megadim, he answers this question, and he says, the halacha is of Kiddush and Havdalah, both of these things have to be said around the time when the day is changing. It could be a little before, a little bit after, and it doesn't indicate by you doing it that the day has changed. It could be that it does, it depends what you did. But you can make Havdalah when it's still Shabbos, and it works. You just can't do any malacha. Because the halacha is you have to make a statement you're in a day that has a special halachas to it when you go into that day, when you leave that day. And your yaitza, you can make Havdalah 2 hours after Shkia too, right? 3 hours. How can you do that? It's already the next day. No, but even if you already did malacha, right? You ate malava malka, and now you remembered you didn't say Havdalah, right? You can still say Havdalah, right? So how can you do that? The answer is because, you're still within the zone that it's appropriate. It doesn't mean that you changed the day. You're in the zone till Tuesday. No, that's tashlumim. As long as it's done on Sunday, that's called a day. That's in the zone. And after Sunday, it's midin tashlumim. It's not a din of, okay? So, all right. Now, I don't know why, how do we get to that? But okay, so the answer is that you could daven Ma'ariv even before it's night, because we're close enough to the time that you can do that. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's called that it is exactly night. I'll just say the Mishnah Berurah, who does not like his Mishnah Berurah is favors doing like the Rabbanan that you don't daven Ma'ariv during the daytime. On Friday night he's Mekel, right? Because of Tosfos Shabbos.
Sure doesn't go by close enough.
No, because it has to be. I'll just tell you there are certain things that the last thing that we bumped into that's like that is Daled Kaisis. On Pesach by night, we don't make Kiddush until it's night. Why? If you're counting Sefiras on the first night of Pesach, you're gonna
get a day off.
Yeah. Okay. So why is that? Because it has to be done at night.
The Korban Pesach has to be at night, no?
Okay, but so the Dalikais, which are part of the Korban Pesach, according to Sabach Reinu, have to be done at night. Now that's a special limud. Your Kiddush kais of the four kaises, the Kiddush part of the four kaises, that could be done in Taisus Yontif. But the Dalikais part of the first kais, that can't, okay? This is a fascinating idea, and we discussed this, I think, about 15 years ago, before Pesach. We learned that Simon in Shulchan Aruch. Okay.
It's learned on the island that in some old people's homes, the Indians say that early, so because the covenant, you're 10 or 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So it's like taking Shabbos early. You start Pesach early. To say that's halachic.
I will just tell you it's a problem. I'll just tell you that I think for 3 years in a row I had a guy who he had a mother that was in an old age home, and she wanted him to be by the Seder, and they would do it early, and he wanted to know what to do. So this is what's called like the rabbi's nightmare, how to work it out the best way that you could do it. And some of the places they just have Rabbi Gamliel. They're saying if you have Rabbi Gamliel before when it's already night, that's good enough. I'm not going to get involved. There's all kinds of shittas in the poskim of what to do.
He wasn't doing a real Seder afterwards.
So he was going to do it with his mother, right? And this is an issue of what you can do, what you can't. But we don't have anybody over here who's doing those things. I just say anybody who has difficulty being up, take a nap on Erev Pesach. Okay? Anyways, okay. You count, okay. You should count when it gets dark, bebrocha. You could say Sefiras OMER once it's dark, even though it's before the stars came out. The Ben Hashmoshes who Safik Laila was Linan Bekula Besafik Drabanan. This is Drabanan Rabbi Paskim, and we say that it's night. Okay, Gil, you got that? We say that it's night. It's not proper to put yourself into a Safik. To not have to rely on those opinions. The second one. Okay. Now this is a fascinating idea, because why should you do that? Alamai, he's being chayshish that Sefiras OMER is the Raisa. But Vadai, the halacha is that if you count the Ben Hashmoshes, that's good enough. And if somebody would ask me, this is like what I call a hard call, a question that's a hard call. There are many people who don't want to count Sefiras until it's night, whatever night means to them. And they're davening with a minyan that's doing it earlier. Now, how big of an inyan is it to not count and rely that you'll remember later? Okay? Now, because the halacha is that it's zicher ben hashmoshes when the tzibur is counting. So, you're zicher yaitza, and you may forget. So, if a person wants to do that, he better be pretty sure that he knows what he's doing, or he should count with a tanai. Okay, we'll learn about that a little bit later. Okay. All right, let's start the next sif. The next sif is very important. Ha-mispalel imat tzibor mi ba'od yom. You're davening with a tzibor that's doing early Ma'ariv. English early Ma'ariv, before Shkia. Okay, we're going to see if it means before Plag or not. We're going to see. Okay? Ha-mispalel imat tzibor mi ba'od yom. Mone imohem b'loi bracha. you count with them without a bracha. V'miyizkar b'layla yivorech v'yispor. And if you remember at night, you make a bracha and you count. So, why are you counting with them?
Forget to count.
Okay, but I have a problem with your answer. Because if that would be true, then you wouldn't say that you make a bracha.
Well, that's why you're doing out tonight.
Did I say anything about it tonight? Not.
Yeah, well, how does the team work? How we ever, you're all counting when...
Okay, well, we're going to learn the Bir Halacha and all these questions will cease to exist. Okay, v'afilu anu abirchas hakol, im hay b'daita shlalot says, yachzer v'yivorech v'yisper b'layla. You can make a bracha even if you count. Okay, mibod yom. Yesh me'achronim shepirshu hainu ben hashmoshes, shu sofik layla, v'yoytzim oz yidei sfir la poiskim the sfir la sfir b'zman ez eder rabbanon. Ocher, right, so ledaktik v'litzor v'tesek achovim, like we said before, that's what's right to do, kol ma'machabed hu yimna imoim pen yishkach achakach. V'yachsha b'daitoi, and he makes it tonight. Im eskar achar layla limnois, any right to lotus b'sfir azug, k'il l'kamei. Al ken k'shegia azman achar kach yivorch v'yisper, v'ayim b'bir halacha. Now this Bir Halacha I call the most important Bir Halacha that we learn because it gives you an idea of how complicated Halacha is. We're going to have to count our fingers when we start and when our end and see where we are. I Mishnah Berurah, the mashma mehem, the miplag mincha lekuli alma eni yochel limnos. There's no tzad that you can count from plag mincha. V'dad yesh habi achronim, levush el yerabba chok Yaakov ma Mordechai nar shalom. The mefarshmi ba'od yom hainu plag mincha l'mayla. Not like I just said. Even though I just said you can't count from plag mincha, I just listed the cream of the crop of achronim who seem to say that you can. Umay de kamer moni mohim hainu afal gav the mikir adin kozman she'eno layla eno zman svira k'le'il mikol mokom yesh mekoymos shenagu lahakel. They were noyig to do shaloi al pi halacha mishum doyagil nispal ma'ariv koydem chashecha v'chasheshu shem lo yispor oz b'tzibor yelcho kolacha lebeisoi. Everybody's going to go home. V'yishkechu machmas atirda v'lo yispor. V'ilvater ikar Torah Sfira. What? So this is the whole tzibur. Right.
He just doesn't want to get rid of this mitzvah entirely.
Okay. I'd just like to share with you that if you would live 500 years ago, there was no such thing as a later minyan. Okay. Where do you come from, Manchester? Is there a later minyan?
Nowadays, yes.
But not 30 years ago.
Not if I remember now.
Okay.
I didn't know about the Satmar places like that.
Okay. Well, Satmar was in Hungary. It wasn't Okay. Anyways, Al Kain, Somchu b'mokam adchak, ayesh mi sha'omer, the Sfir bezman hazeh hurak zechel hamikdash. Sfir bezman hazeh is only zechel hamikdash. Ve'en lahach b'bo yeser b'kriyah shema b'tfila. Kiwan dechashiv le'lascholas halayla v'karen shema u'mispal le'mariv, k'mo ken yesh lachshov layla le'yin sfira. Okay, even though this is not the regular halacha, v'komer, da'af mishu talmid chacham im libo noikva shem yitored v'yishkach lispor v'yechidis, yochol lispor im hatzibur. Ach, lo yivorech, you should make a bracha oz. Why? The mikir adin ain't a zman sfira. It's not zman sfira. Ella shalo menichin min loisa mekamis kadesh leivatu legami mitzazu, and they were soymach on adeya, which is not the halacha. Ukishagi azman balayla yivorach v'yispor. Ve'ena bracha levatala. Why? The sfira kamaisa lav klumhu mikir adin. The first counting that you did was nothing al pi halacha. Okay. Okay. So we explained why we allow them to do something which is not Mikra Adin.
Just not to get rid of the mitzvah or whatever.
Right. Okay. So now, if somebody would ask me, when can you count Sfira from? What's the answer to the question? Nothing changed because of this halacha. We just have a halacha which said for certain shas adchak situations, we went below the line of scrimmage and we were makel for them that they could do something that it has some kind of a
Why
justification.
don't we just say that everybody can count the two and count without the bracha? And then everybody should then say count again with a bracha if they remember.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know,
Only for the individual.
yeah.
Even the particular